South Asians have embarked on some of the greatest historical journeys undertaken by mankind. Gujarati and Punjabi communities who came from the Indian subcontinent to Africa eventually made UK their home. Businesses established by East African Asians in the UK and the challenges that came with it have had a strong impact on their personal lives. People of South Asian descent first came to East Africa under British rule, working as labourers during the construction of Kenya-Ugandan railways. Asians had taken a middle position during the colonial period, with the British dominating and the African majority coming lower down. Beyond the 1940s, South Asian settlers in Kenya and Uganda flourished in businesses and other sectors. Gujarati and Punjabi people who once lived in East Africa had many memories of time spent there.
Yes, my name is Jafar Kapasi, and I was born in a place called Masindi, northwest of Uganda, in the kingdom of Bunyoro, Gitara. My grandparents, they had a business set up in the state of Gujarat, in Kathiawar, and the business was going downhill. So my father was the youngest of the 5 brothers. So my grandfather decided to send my father, who was only 14 years old, to Africa. And the only connection he had with Africa was one of my grandfather's cousin was in Mombasa, and he was in printing business. So in early 1930s, he traveled to Mombasa on his own. He was only 14 years old, and with a view to to support the family back at home in India.
My father was a building contractor in Kenya. So we used to manufacture railings, like steel railings, and used to work in a shop, welding shop. So we used to manufacture our own joinery, work to supply the building sites. So I used to work with my father on a building site as well. I used to do a lot of reinforced steel work. My father used to help. So me and my brothers, they came to England at that time. So I was working with my father all the time.
My father went to Kenya and worked for the British government. He was an engineer, and he was working in the Ministry of Transport and Ministry of Development. So that's fond memories of living in government-provided accommodation in big bungalows and big spaces, and it was really good life. So after Nairobi, my father moved to Mombasa in '63 for about 2 years, for a year or so. Yeah, that's right. '63, we moved to Mombasa for about 18 months. And again, with his job, and again, really fond memories of Mombasa, the beaches, the weather, and very much remember the very mixed, diverse communities, and we all lived together in perfect harmony, perfect peace, Muslims, Sikhs, Hindus, and the local people, wonderful, and learning the language, enjoying each other's food, enjoying each other's company.
Everybody was looked after. In the morning when we were getting ready, all our shoes were polished, all our uniforms were there. So you just wear it, go to school. And in the evenings, I used to go and play badminton with my dad. So I will change it into a white skirt and white blouse and canvas shoes. And I used to love badminton. Life was going very smoothly. I had 2 brothers. I'm the eldest. My mom was a very active woman at that period because she could drive the car and she used to speak 4 languages at that time, yes. So the life was going very, very smoothly, very nicely. We had so many Gujarati friends there, and actually I used to speak Gujarati at that time.
The earliest memories are, of course, of the growing up in that village, which was a very happy atmosphere. no fear of crime, no fear of child molestation or anything like that. And we could wander around anywhere, never went hungry. Food was available. If you felt hungry, you walked into any house and people will feed you.
We lived in a big house where all the people, different community used to live in the same house. And we used to get together, have different type of games at the time. And I had my primary education in Nairobi as well. I used to go to City Primary School. And from there I went to secondary school, Visawashal Primary School. And I did my O-levels and A-levels in Kenya.
I think it was age of 6 when we started our primary school. And the first school I remember, I can still remember that, was Shimoni, we used to call it Shimoni Primary School. And before going any further, we used to have segregation in Uganda because Uganda was under British Empire. It was not a colony, they used to call it a protectorate. Kenya was a colony, but Uganda was, they called it protectorate. And there was segregation. There were schools for whites, blacks, and Asians. And they were actually called Asian schools. And there were only Asians in those schools.
I think there was a kind of a harmony, especially in the villages where we lived, in the village. There was not much rivalry or anything, but basically the life in Kenya was compartmentalized. So the Indians lived their own separate life and the Africans lived their own separate life. Whites were totally aloof and exclusive and you couldn't approach them. They only came, like the saying was, when they wanted to collect the tax or when they wanted to enforce their laws that they had passed in. Apart from that, you never saw them.
There were areas within Moshi which we knew were European areas. And I do remember that on an occasion that I'm walking down a road and some Englishman came out and asked me, what am I doing here? So we were aware of that. So, but then you see, the thing is that I think you were conditioned into accepting it as it was.
The English used to be classed as high class. Their areas used to be different than Asians and Africans. All the Africans used to live across the sea in a small villages, whereas English people used to live on seaside. And mostly the Asians were in business, so they used to live in town, main town. So that was the thing, and mainly the servants that we used to have was Africans. So that is the difference, that what we used to notice. That higher standard went to the English people, and then it was Asian.
With the independence of East African nations looming, Asians holding British passports made the decision to leave for the United Kingdom. On the 9th of October 1962, Uganda gained independence. Kenya achieved freedom on the 1st of June 1963. Post-independence, some Asians became citizens of Kenya and Uganda, though a significant number preserved their citizenship of the United Kingdom and colonies. The newly independent nations went on to pursue policies of the Africanization program, resulting in the Asian communities being marginalized.
In 1968, what happened was, people were moving out their youngsters before, that's why we came in 67. But in 1968, there was an amendment to the Commonwealth Act, which created a situation where we, British citizens, were going to be made into second-class citizens. We were going to be made into British overseas citizens. and there would be immigration regulation applicable to everybody who was a British overseas citizen. So this created an exodus of the Asians from Kenya.
When we signed that document, whatever to make us British, or the creation of the Commonwealth, at that time, I don't think anybody knew, but the DC, the district commissioner, or the provincial commissioner came around and told everybody to sign, and they explained through the elders, and people just signed that document, and that made us British.
I came here because my parents said, you come to Africa. I said, all right, I'll come down, and I applied here for going back to Africa. They said, I can't go back because I just come after the independence. I can go there and visit my parents, but I can't stay there because my parents were there already, and they had a firm, building contractor firm there, and I couldn't go there. So I just stuck here. I wasn't very, very well, I did take it very well because I was born there and they rejected me because they didn't want me.
When it was 12th of the 12th, 1964, 12 o'clock at night, when it became independent, I'm sure that was the date. I was quite young, but I think it was what I can vaguely remember, that they all came with machetes and all these sticks, and they started breaking because they were so overjoyed that now they got their freedom.
What I mean, we lived there. We never thought about coming out of the country. We never thought about anything about never to come out of the Kenya because we born there. And difficulties of the security, there's no security. One time ago, my father and my brother went there to Kenya. They had a coup in Kenya, and they put a gun on my father's chest. They tried to shoot him. Then something comes to his mind. He let him go. So that day, my father said, I don't want to stay in Kenya. So that's why he come back here.
Things started changing because the British law was different to the African law. And they were sort of a bit dangerous because when you go to town, they used to mug you, and things started going bad. But don't forget one thing, we were in their country, so they could do whatever they want to. It's just like any other country, I suppose.
When the Kenyan government started operating, and they started putting new rules in. New rules were, the one instance was that a guy is running a corner shop or a big company on a road, and if an African citizen who is an African, if he says, I want this shop, and there was a law there that you have to give him that shop. He'll pay you the money, but you have to move out from that area and you find you another shop and you start running there.
Well, we had quite a few sentimental things in Kampala, but obviously the scene that I can remember is when most of the family members had left, and I've got some tears now in my eyes because our dog called Tommy, I could feel, he could see that we are emptying the house, and he was just turning around and around, and I think I can never forget that in my life. It's called Tommy, and I think the feeling that probably dogs have, like they say, dogs are more honest to their owners than sometimes the family members, and I could feel exactly what he was feeling, and it was a very sad moment for me at that time. I'm sorry. That's the memory, and thousands of other memories, but this memory is very sentimental. Leaving behind properties and all those things, those are materialistic things. But this was something very special.
My government will respect all citizenship certificates which were properly issued before the 25th January 1971. This is the point number one. However, with respect to such certificates as were illegally obtained, this will not be respected and will be cancelled in accordance with the provisions of the law.
Did they take anything away from you?
Only money they are taken.
You yourself, did you lose anything?
Yeah, I had to give everything except 5 shillings.
Towards the late 60s and early 70s, there was a growing exodus of Kenyan Asians in reaction to discriminatory laws. This was traumatic for families who became separated and felt stateless. After Uganda's General Idi Amin came to power in 1971, he reassured the Asian community of respecting their citizenship certificates. However, on the 4th of August 1972, upon orders, Asians in Uganda with British passports had to forcibly leave the country within 3 months. Joining in the many queues, thousands of Asians left East Africa for the UK by various modes of transport, leaving behind their properties, finances, and successful businesses.
And we heard the news that Idi Amin had a dream in which he was asked to expel all the Asians from the country. And the reason he gave was that the Asians were sabotaging the economy, they were exploiting the people, they were not integrating with the local Africans, and that they should all go.
Because there were a lot of army around, last days of Idi Amin, a year before I left. Yeah, it was everywhere you go, there were army barracks, stops, they check you, And I think Idi Amin himself was a Sudanese guy. He was not a Bugandan. Bugandan is the Africans who are born in Uganda. They're called Bugandans, right? But he was from Sudan.
People who came to India afterwards, some of them had lost their dads, their brothers, because dad's heart attack all of a sudden. And the worst thing Idi Amin did was, which I think was very, very touching for people, to say, give your daughter's hand to us. I think nobody could, it was something like a shock.
So we were very fortunate, nothing happened to us. But a lot of families, they were scared to traveling. So eventually, when a lot of Asians had some contacts, so they were using certain police cars to take them from up countries coming to the city. And like I said, media was nowhere. All we used to hear rumors, this happened, that happened. I wouldn't like to describe exactly those incidents because I think it's very sour,
One of the senior police officers was Mr. Inspector Hassan, and he was murdered by Idi Amin because he used to voice, the concerns about the economy and the country. So anybody who came in his way, Idi Amin would make sure that he is killed, even within the various African tribes.
It's either make or break. You can break your family in one small thing. Like otherwise, even the officer asked my dad, he says, what's he going to do if he doesn't come with you? He says, all I'm going to do is he's going to study here and I'm going to send him the money from England. And he's got to make his own life. So that's why, you can see the different sides, who's there to help you and who's there not to help you or harass you.
And you can see the turmoil at the airport. There were goods lying everywhere. There were people, some were crying, some were distraught. And, they were all scared to come to England because of the atmosphere which we had heard about and known about through the news and so on.
So a lot of people were worried that they would get stuck and what would happen to their children. So they left all their possession and paid over the odds to get seats on planes to come here. So there was a major exodus. My younger brothers, sisters, and my mother also came. My father stayed back, But they also came because they didn't know what was going to happen.
We must be mad, literally mad as a nation, to be permitting the annual inflow of some 50,000 dependents. It is like watching a nation busily engaged in heaping up its own funeral pyre.
The Commonwealth Immigrants Act 1968, which was an amendment to the 1962 Act, had a major bearing on East African British citizens.
They support Enoch Powell, 88%.
Despite the 1968 Race Relations Act coming into force, migrants were treated like second-class citizens in the UK. During that period in history, the infamous Rivers of Blood speech, delivered by Enoch Powell, added more fuel to the fire. Consequently, East African British citizens had to initially experience a significant drop in lifestyle.
Turban was a major issue here for many years. It was when a schoolboy was virtually being forced to leave the school unless he removed his turban, that things came to a head. And that's the time when it became a major issue. People, when we initially came, if you are wearing a turban, you could not get a job even on the bus seat. So it was an issue. So a lot of people who came from India, Pakistan or Bangladesh, if there was a Sikh, the first thing they would do was remove their hair because there was no chance they'd get a job. But when we came from Kenya, we did not want to do that. So we kept our turbans and we started fighting for our right. So slowly things started changing. But it was a slow, very, very slow process.
My wife's father, when he came in 1958, they were not giving him a job, and he was a skilled, amazingly skilled carpenter. But they will not give him a job because of his turban. And so he had to take his turban off, got a job, and within a week, he started wearing his turban again, and they never said anything to him because he was such an amazing worker. He was hanging 6 doors while the other people would hang 3 doors in a day. So they were amazed. And then slowly, I think the bigger companies started to accept that, especially the Sikhs, they're coming from that background of being engineers and builders. Yeah, a lot of them are carpenters, engineers, construction workers, and they welcomed them and didn't have much of a hard time.
In this country, in 15 or 20 years' time, the black man will have the whip hand over the white man. I can already hear the chorus of execration. How dare I say such a horrible thing? How dare I stir up trouble and inflame feelings by repeating such a conversation?
When Enoch Powell made that speech, I don't think I was aware of the political implications, what he was saying. We were already at his stage at that time when we were looking at the fact that racial discrimination was not right. And what this fellow did was just creating fear.
So look, everything is surrounding us is hostile. There's already hostility in Uganda. They're being deported. They're coming to England, where that was going to be our next home because we had British passport. There's already atmosphere so much against us. How will we survive in a country where people don't want us?
There was a lot of races in England here. I went when I came here. One of the places I went over there to look for the job. Then first of all, they said you have to give a try for the job. I gave him a try for the job. Then say, all right, you are all right, fine. But unfortunately, we don't keep colored people.
During the daytime, there were a few white people, but majority of the workers were all immigrants, Indians and Pakistanis and Bangladeshis at that time, and a few West Indians as well. And I didn't know that West Indians were different from Africans. But that was one side thing. On the night shift, 99% of the people were immigrants. The white people didn't work the night shift.
Yeah, they didn't want us here. Reason being, they thought that we were coming as such in a bulk to ruin the country. Because I still remember, and if I go back, we were interviewed and televised at the evening. We arrived on the airport on the 28th morning that we were coming from Africa in one of the planes that we were just sent back. And somebody made a remark of herd of kettles arriving, something like that, during those times. And the changes that were going to happen up here, and very much against the color of the skin as well.
I think the British made one mistake by giving everybody a British passport, right? By giving a British passport, they don't want to know anybody else. They want us out of Kenya or Uganda, and they weren't bothered. So now everybody started coming to England. British had to change the law for the very reason, if everybody, all of the world comes to England, the England will start sinking. So we have a limitation of how many people we can absorb.
I think even in those days, we found that we were making inroads into the economic and the commercial sector here anyway. So we were not only professionals who were looking for jobs, but we also had businesses, corner shops, supplies, and so on. So those were there. For somehow or the other, the feeling was that no, we are here to stay.
Many South Asians with successful businesses in East Africa had to start again from scratch after emigrating to the UK. Some set up small family businesses, which gradually expanded, whilst others saved money to invest on a larger scale. Although there were economic implications, most individuals reclaimed the success they'd left behind in East Africa. With the passage of time, South Asian businesses in the UK positively integrated and succeeded.
I was just sitting and having my cup of tea in the balcony in New Delhi, and I saw a plane just like going, and I was drinking and I looked at the plane, and the first thing in my mind came, I should go on plane, maybe UK. I don't know how it came, and I said, all right. I asked my dad said, yeah, go in the holidays and we will look after your daughters. So when I went to buy the ticket, Connaught Place in Delhi, my dad came with me. The travel agent, he told me, you present programs on the television? I said, yeah. She said, you have got a very good talent. Why you are going? I said, just as a visitor. She said, take your things with you. So I brought small things and 2 dolls with me. And they were always on the dining table of my auntie's house. Whoever would come would say, oh, you should show this to museum and art galleries. So I went to Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery, but I got frightened when I saw the building. So then I went to Leamington Spa, small gallery. Showed them my work. They said me, you just sit down outside and we will be with you in a few minutes. They called me after 10 minutes and they asked me, can you bring a solo exhibition in 1988 in December? And I straight away said yes.
I became loss assessor at the same time. So I guided people what to do, what not to do, saving money, saving their back by not claiming unnecessarily. It's not the way of making profit. You all go into liquidation because there is no liquidity in your business, but you're just trying to get the money somehow from somewhere, which is the wrong way of business. And to be on honest side, I was well known for that, guiding them, making their business prosperous, teaching them what to do, what not to do. And not only that, there became some ladies as well wanted to venture out into the small business within the house area to start sewing or manufacturing and things like that.
Because it's in the blood, the carpentry and all that. My father said, all right, we start a business in this country. And because of him, he bought a patch of land where my brothers helped to build this business up, and they used to work outside contractors as well. And they established themselves, we have been going for a long time, But now, we established, and the people know, in this area that we are here.
In England, we used to go around looking for different businesses, what was available at the time. It wasn't easy, because I think biggest problem was finance. Without finance, you couldn't survive here. Businesses were expensive. We looked around, couldn't figure out what was happening. We went to a few places where they manufactured ducting and all that. We didn't go into it at all. So finally we decided that this is a business we are going into, because we've always been in building works. So we decided to go into supplying. But in the shop we had a full machine shop. We used to do all different types of joinery, manufacture our own tools, manufacture windows, anything, purpose-made joinery. So it's been a tough ride, but we got through it.
And when we opened this we moved to Birmingham, the first shop, we came in, look at it, and we hired a carpenter, we hired a builder, we said we want this, we want that, and we left them to it. And when it was ready, we were called back. It was all ready. So we cleaned it up, and a week after, we just came in, cooked the food, put on a display, and here we go. There were two other shops on the other road, same kind of us, and plus we were pricey than them, and we just went from strength to strength. And suddenly those two shops, they phoned my dad and says, how come you're so busy? He says, are you selling it cheap? He says, no. So my dad called them one by one to our shop and said, you come sit here with me, see what we do, what price we sell. And as soon as they saw it, they say, yeah. So it's the food what you deliver, it's the consistency what you keep, and if you keep that, there is no problem. There is no.
Love music, it made a difference. Listening to Kirtan, I enjoy Bollywood songs. I do find that in the older songs, there used to be philosophy about life, which was really beautiful. And my father used to quote certain things to me. I remember there is a very old singer called C.H. Atma, and he used to sing a song which used to say, "Unchi nichi dagar जीवन की, चलना संभल के प्यारे संभल के चलना, मंजिल तो है बड़ी दूर." Now to me, that is a philosophy of life in that one line. And then there is another thing that used to be in that line, which used to be that सूनी डगर पे तुझको चोर मिलेंगे लाखों, करनी करेंगे जरूर, धर्म कर्म की झोली कहाँ पे गवाई तूने, पूछेंगे तेरे हुजूर. Philosophy of life in just 2 lines, and that's been the way I've led my life.
British.